Hello, everyone. We're back and we got a guest with us this time. Yay.
Hello.
Hello, hello. Okay, so we have Kaitlyn with us today. And Kaitlyn is like a dear friend. We've known each other now, I don't know, a few years, I feel like,
Years. Yeah.
which is kind
I don't know about time anymore since
of,
the pandemic. I
I
hate to
don't
go back to
either.
pandemic, but I feel like that's what it
Yes,
always is. That's that changing point.
it is. So it's like virtual friendship that just goes deep and you're like, I've known you forever, but not. It's great. Oh my gosh. But Kaitlyn is someone who we definitely met through business and entrepreneurship. And then like I got into human design. She was like, what is this human design? And she's gone deep into it and continues to. So she's been somebody who I love. I love chatting about human design with you, Kaitlyn. It is like so much fun because you have such good questions. And I will say that everyone's chart is different and unique. But I feel like for you, Kaitlyn, your chart is like this really interesting. You are a sacral generator, but you have a lot of openness, a lot of open centers in your chart. So you kind of like can play this balance of really relating to the generator type, but also you're like, hey, but like projectors, like I got a lot of openness too. Like I can relate to this. So I just feel like you and I have had really interesting conversations like around that, what that means for you, like decision making, alignment, that I just feel is different than other people I've talked with. So I feel like this is a lovely combo to have Jenna, Kaitlyn, myself, all in one conversation. Because it's really like this spectrum of energetics with us three. So welcome. So glad you are
Thank
here.
you. I'm excited. I was telling
Yes.
them before I am a super fan. So I can and I do. I relate with both of you from the generator perspective and the projector
Yeah.
perspective. So it's kind of fun.
Yeah. And would love to start with like if you want to give us any kind of your take on human design when you fell into it, why it was of interest to you and kind of why you've gone down the rabbit hole of human design.
Yeah, absolutely. So the first time I had heard of it was probably early 2020.
Hmm.
And a friend of mine was doing readings, and I was just kind of like on a personal growth journey. I had just started the business program where through Susan that Jess and I met through. And I was just kind of like, why not? So I got on
Yeah.
the call with her, and it was like an hour and a half call. And it kind of blew my mind, honestly.
Sure.
I think the thing that really stuck with me from a generator perspective that I loved was just this idea of living in your joy. Like you are actually meant to live in your joy. And when you do that, you lift everyone else up. That's
Mm,
just like so cool, right? Like give yourself permission to just do what you like.
yeah.
And it really gave me permission to start saying no to a
Mm,
lot of things. I was definitely feeling like I was saying yes to way too many things. So that was probably the biggest takeaway from that call. And then I kind of just like would read a little bit about it here and there. Of course, I looked up like my whole family's charts, like things like that. But then it wasn't until probably a year later that we had
mhm.
our readings, Jess, and we got
Yeah.
like a lot more into profile and things like that. And it's like every time you pull back like another layer, it's like, oh my gosh, this is so crazy. And I
Yes.
think at times it can like trip you up a little bit if you get too like deep into it because you feel like, well, am I doing this right? Am I doing this wrong? Or at least that's how my perspective. But then I think if you just look at it as like, okay, this is a tool that's going to help guide me, but it doesn't need to be everything, then it can be super helpful in just learning about other people too. It's so fascinating.
I love that.
Absolutely. Hmm.
I love that. And it's cool because we just had that generator episode, Jess, where
Yeah.
I feel like I wanted to celebrate how cool it is for generators to be in their joy,
Hmm.
because then that means I get to be in my joy because I'm feeling it with you as a projector.
Absolutely. Hmm.
I'm curious, like, where were you at in life when it came to you in
Mm-hmm.
terms of like work, relationships? Like, what
Yeah.
state were you in, and maybe how did it like shift?
Everything was changing.
Yeah, just
Ah,
pivotal point.
Yeah, I would say that that was definitely a really pivotal point for me. So, I guess I think I'm maybe like a year off when I was saying that. But so 2020 was laid off from my job, but I had been wanting to leave it, had been doing a side hustle for a very long time and wanting that to be kind of my full-time thing. But like I was very comfortable. It was very safe. It was like I had a great kind of like full-time setup. And it was just easy. So I never really took the risk, but then I was forced to just be like pushed into it with the pandemic. And that was like blessing in this disguise because my kids were home at the time. They were only 4 and 6. And I don't even know like what I would have done if I was still doing that job, frankly.
Yeah.
But I was very much like, okay, what's the next thing? Like I had always put all these obligations and shoulds on myself of like, okay, I need to fulfill that income that I lost, even though I was laid off at a time where like I was getting incredible pay through the government, like
Yeah.
and I'm fully taking care of my kids full time. Like, why did I feel like I had to figure out the next thing? But that's just how I always was. And in the middle of all of that, we decided to move out of nowhere, like literally just, I don't know. I wrote down in my journal at one point in 2020 that I wanted a house in nature near water. We would vacation in Cape May, and we ended up spending 3 extra weeks that summer in Cape May in like kind of a different location, just to get out of the city and the chaos that was going on. And we were like joking, oh, maybe we should look at houses. And we would always kind of joke about that. Like, we'll still rent in the city and we'll just buy something at the beach and it'll be an Airbnb. And then that October, like something just came up and we like came down and saw it. And literally by like that Sunday, we had to put an offer in. I was scared shitless.
So fun. I'm like, I love this.
And I was a hot mess. Like my husband was pushing this like so hard. And I was like crying every day. I don't know. It was like, it was very scary for me. So much of me wanted the house and that space and like that place, but I didn't know if I was like ready to leave everything in the city. But we went with it. And that January was when I like found human design the first time. And
I was going to say, like, it sounds like you were just following your sacral.
it was a lot.
Like, it was like, yes.
But I'm terrified.
Like, yeah, your mind isn't always on board when your sacral speaks.
Yeah.
But it sounds like a very spontaneous in the moment decision.
It was very spontaneous. And Jessica knows that my husband is a manifester. And so it was one of those moments where he was informing, like he was like, this is what we need to do. And but he would go back because he saw like how upset I was. So he'd be like, if you really don't want to do this. It was also because we weren't really necessarily planning to move here full time. It was like, we're going to kind of see what happens, but we were trying to figure out how we would live there our house, we had to sign a federal document that said that it was going to be our permanent residence for a year. If someone found out that it wasn't, we would have had to be fined $10,000 and then who knows what else. So it was very nerve-wracking.
Oh my gosh.
I love that your manifestor was informing and that you have a manifestor husband, because I'm like, oh God, this is so juicy. Us 3.
Yes. Oh yeah, I know.
Yes, we all have manifestor men.
So I think that's what I'm like, not like a rule breaker like that. So I was like, we cannot hide behind it. Like we need to make sure we got our ducks in a row. And we were moving there and we rented in the city. So I think that's the only reason they even looked at us, because they really wanted to give locals like a chance, because, you know, all these investors come in and then whatever. So like, we have to do this. It's the only way we're going to get this house. And then once we couldn't save our apartment, we were trying to sublet our apartment in the city. And that's when it was like really hard, because I just really loved that place. So many memories, my babies and all of that. But we did it. And then like the winter was so rough because we moved January to a beach town. Like who does that?
Maybe not ideal, but it works.
But then by June, we're like, all right, we're not going back. I mean, there's just, so yeah, so we're here now, and everything since then has just changed. Like my life has completely changed since 2020. Every single thing about it, and myself. Like, I don't think looking back at who I was in 2020 is so different. It's just, it's crazy.
That's so beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. And I'm like selfishly thinking, like, I wonder what your astrocartography map is. Like, I wonder if like you're closer to some sort of line in Cape May, because it's a pretty big shift for you to say, like, I feel like a completely different person. That'd be fun to look at.
That is interesting. All right, I'm gonna go down that rabbit hole.
Not to send you down another rabbit hole, but I'm down it too, so we can be there together.
Oh, that's amazing. Well, and would you say, like, does your husband feel similar? Is he like, man, I feel like I'm also completely different? Or like, kind of, was it a whole family dynamic energy shift?
I think I went through just a personal transformation during this. I think that he is going through that, but there's been like some roadblocks along the way. However, he was probably ready to leave the city more for me. Like, he kept saying, if we're going to stay in the city, I at least need a place to like get away. So he also still like goes to New York like twice a month. And he was commuting already from Philly, and his whole world changed in the sense that like he doesn't commute 3 days a week anymore. He works from home. He's not like around people all the time, which I think is good for him. But then he goes, like right now, he's in New York. But yeah, so I think just like being in this environment where we're not in the constant like hustle and crazy energy of the city, just changes anyone.
Absolutely. I can't help but like look at the variables and like environment. I'm like, oh man, I need to pull up your husband's to be like, what's his environment? But like yours, which we've never really talked about, is caves. So I'm like, oh, you want to like be in your little place and like see the surroundings and be protected. But I wonder like if his is like shores or something else where he like,
likes to bounce back and forth.
Yeah.
Experience both.
Well, he is a 2-4. So.
For his profile as well. Yeah. Interesting. I'm going to have to look into that at some point and see like, ooh,
you know what was
variables?
coming up for me while I was listening to this? And this is like, we're just tooting our own horns. Like, I love the men in our lives and for being so supportive, but like, kudos to us for all going down a freaking like self-discovery journey the last 3 years. Like, I feel like even when we had Alex and Rachel on, like, it was just so enlightening to see like all of these women just facing their shit and transforming and like guiding their families to better places. So I just want to say kudos to you and to all of us.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes. I love this. I do too. Well, and I would love to like hear, as you're doing this transformation, like with human design, you had mentioned like, okay, being in my joy. Okay. That really like landed, that there's like this real cascading effect and like real like power in that. But like, what other aspects of your design, either currently or like, that you play with or that you come back to, that have really helped in this whole transition? And like, really, I mean, now I feel like you've kind of gone through that sticky point and now you're like, okay, how do I want to align? How do I want to spend my time? How do I want my energy out? Are there things with your human design and your energetics that you like come back to kind of help through all of that?
Yeah, for sure. Well, I would say there's always like the tough ones, right? So I would say since we're waiting.
Yes.
The one thing that was so hard, and I probably had you explain this to me like 25 times, was I did not understand waiting to respond.
Yeah.
I did not understand it. And I think I finally do, I think. But for so long, because I've always been someone that like initiates, and like I've been, I don't know, conditioned to be like, take action. And like, if you want to get things done, then you reach out to people or whatever it is. And so I remember I would talk to you and I'd be like,
yep,
I'm always the one reaching out to my friends. Like, I feel like I'm always the one that's initiating this. Am I not supposed to be? Like, I was all freaked out about it, I guess. And you had explained to me, like, it doesn't mean that you can't start a conversation or start something, but like there's something else that's asking you to do that, kind of like there's something else that's prompting you. But then on the flip side, it has taught me so much of like why I love to respond, and also how why I'm probably good at certain areas of like work and life with like communication and getting back to people and like things like that, because it's like it's almost like I have a hard time. Sometimes I have to like pull myself back, be like, all right, no, just don't respond yet. It's okay.
Yes.
This is a point where you don't need to respond. So yeah, that has had a lot of lessons in it for me, for sure. And then the 3 line, I would say, has been interesting, just with trial and error. And I have to remind myself sometimes still that like, this is okay. But like really leaning into that, I'm really want to do a lot of different things and I pivot a lot and things like that. And just being okay with it, that has been a struggle, but also really helpful to know this is what I'm meant to be doing.
Yes. And for just so everyone knows, for Kaitlyn's profile, she's actually a 6'3", which I don't see a ton. Like, I don't know in like the percentages of profiles where the 6'3" or 3'6" lands, but yeah, I think you were actually the first 6'3" I got to work with. And I was like, ooh, this is like double trial and error. Like, oh man, and you're like up on the roof right now in that 6th line. Like it's like a very interesting profile combination to me.
Yeah. So that, I think, I don't know. It's been interesting. I think it was also when you said that, I was like, oh, okay.
Yep. I'll just bump into life.
Take me. Yeah. And I think the openness in my chart too makes me feel like sometimes I can relate to so many different people.
Yeah.
But there's this weird thing I had mentioned when we were talking before, just like over Instagram. I've been thinking a lot about like belonging recently, and looking back at my whole life of like all the conditioning and being so open, like having like the people pleaser and avoiding confrontation and always being the person that's like so easy and go with the flow, and having a million friends and with like different types of groups of friends. Yet why, especially as I get older and older, do I have this like feeling of just like not belonging or like not finding or like being misunderstood? And I think learning my chart more and more has helped me understand kind of maybe why I feel like that, but then also realize, well, you belong to yourself. Like the more that you do the work and understand yourself and be truly aligned and feel like you belong to yourself, then you can go out and not be so worried about it. I think everyone wants to belong, right? In some way.
Sure. Absolutely.
That's beautiful. I was like, those words were coming to mind, like you belong to yourself, and then you said them. So I'm like, oh, I love that. Yeah. And I felt that too. Like, especially with the openness in the chart and open solar plexus. I mean, I know you have that too, Jess, but trying to find that place where you fit in. Yeah, I feel that resonates with me.
And even, actually, Jenna, I don't remember for you if this is in your chart or not. But for like the G center, like Kaitlyn also has that open G center. So that like, you know, self-purpose and identity, like that may never feel super cozy or super clear, but you can see that for others, but to see it for yourself can be that struggle. There can be that conditioning, like everything you were saying, kind of that just like summed up your open centers, like that, the conditioning that you were just talking about. Yeah. Like those key areas. But I think that's like so beautiful. And it's, you know, just even watching your Instagram the last couple of years, it's been so cool to see how it's changed. Like, you come across so much more as like an authority and so much more like centered and just like this, like knowing like these are the tools that support me. And it's not more of like, I guess more of that, like three line of like kind of bumping into things, kind of like, I don't know, we'll try this, we'll try this. It just seems now like, ooh, she's in her sweet spot. Like, look at her go. Like, she is like doing the content, and like, it's like, it has a completely different vibration than I feel like it did a couple of years ago, which is so cool. It's just so cool to see that transformation like in real time.
Thank you. On some days it feels like that. Some days it doesn't, right? Some days I'm like, oh my gosh, can we just like not with social media anymore?
Totally.
Let's go over it. I think that also comes back with the open centers, right? Like, especially with like open head and stuff like that. It's like the social media can be very detrimental because I'm inspired by everything, but then I also want to compare myself to everything. It's like, oh, I want to do this. Oh, I want to do this. But so, and I don't know if anyone else does this, but I've had to like mute a lot of people, not because they trigger me or annoy me or anything. It's all about me. And I just can't, like, I can't see it all.
Yeah, I feel like that's the open heart too, the open ego needing to prove yourself. My mom had actually started sending me a few artists she found on Instagram, like as soon as I put my paintings out there, and I was like, Mom, no. Like, no, I can't look at other people's art at this current moment while I'm trying to share mine. Not because I don't want to, but like, I just know my conditioning and my old behaviors would just be like, oh wait, never mind.
Sure.
You're so much better.
I agree. And like, it's better for creatively, right?
Yes.
I mean, it's great to be inspired, obviously, but sometimes you just like can then morph. Like I find that like I can like morph into other people, which sounds so weird, but I don't know.
No, that's so valid. Like that's so valid, especially based on your chart, but also like it's so true. We need to create space for ourselves because like we're all here to express spirit in a different, unique way and intake and then share what we see from our perspective. Like we're all source, we're all spirit, and we're all giving a new perspective. And so, yeah, like it's so good to be inspired and get the car started by like engaging with other people, but then we're also here to give more than we're intaking. So having those boundaries is so beautiful. And I love that you've kind of grounded into that for yourself. Mute all the people.
Yeah. Muting them all.
Everybody's muted. I'm muting all 700 people I'm following.
Yeah. Someone comments on something. And I'm like, oh gosh, I forgot. I haven't seen their stuff in a while. And I go,
oh my gosh.
Like,
yes. That happens
love
to me
light,
often.
but like, can't look at you.
No. It does make a difference though. Even just like when you, like the first time you open it up, like this, it's different than like, oh, what's all of this? Like, you're like, oh, I know who I'm following. Like, here's my curated feed.
Yeah, you can get
makes it more doable
very easily.
Yes,
very easily.
Absolutely.
And you know, I think especially when you can feel other people's energy and things like that, it's so important to protect your own. And that's definitely been kind of my theme for this year, is just doing that extra work. Whether you call it being an empath or having open centers or whatever it is, just if you identify that way, it's so important. I know like personal relationships and being with people that are in your house, that's really, really important. But it also is social media. Like you can feel that through the screen. You feel it through text messages. It's nuts.
Yeah, I wanted to ask about your kids. I know that Jess has done all the charts, but fill me in, guys. Like, what's in your household manifester? What are your kids? How has that dynamic changed, or your identity as a mom changed since you've learned your human design?
Yeah, it's really interesting. My older daughter, she'll be 10 next week. So she's a Cancer, but she is she is a generator like me, but then her profile is a 2-4 like her dad, which is interesting. And you know what I think is refreshing about knowing the charts is everyone always kind of says like she is a lot like me, and my younger daughter who's 7 is a lot like my husband, which is like nice to hear that, you know, to like have the similarities and be able to relate. But I also hate that too, because like they are their own people, and having the chart, it's like, okay, well, she's a generator a little bit like me, but then she has the 2-4 like her dad, but like really she's just her own. She's her own.
You can like point it out a little easier. Like what is what? Yeah.
Yes. And the 2-4 was really interesting because I always thought of her when she was younger as this very like social person and kind of get along with all different kids and stuff like that. And when she started kindergarten, she had a hard time, not really like meeting other people, but just like going to this new school, this whole thing. And I just didn't understand why. Like, why is this happening? And now she totally falls into her 2-4. Like she is really, really social with like her group.
Yeah.
And then she likes to like hibernate. She needs her alone time. She like keeps asking me every day for her own room. I'm like, if I could build one, I would give it to you.
Oh.
And she is so type A, and she can do things very easily and quickly, and all of those things from like a generator perspective, but also having the 2 line. And she gets very frustrated with her younger sister who is different. And so her sister is a manifesting generator, and she has the 6-3 profile like me.
Oh, wow.
Isn't that
That's
fun?
cool.
Yeah.
That's so
I know.
cool.
I remember being really excited when I got everyone's birth information. Like, oh, look how these
We're all like matching
connect.
up.
Yeah.
And what was so crazy, I remember, I don't even think Brian really even knew what human design was at this point. And we were talking over Voxer, and I actually like made him listen to your message because I was like, you said something about Nola, who's my younger one. You said,
Beautiful name.
oh, thank you. You said 2 things. One, you were like, you know, with that 3 line, you probably know this, but like there could be a lot of feeling like you're failing, things like that, especially like teen years, which 100% we're dealing with. Like, she's only 7, we're dealing with like a lot there right now.
Yeah.
Then you also said something in her chart about physical touch.
Oh, yep. She's probably emotionally defined.
Oh my gosh, it's like insane with her. Like everything, like physical touch is so important with her. And now I'm actually even seeing it from like an anger perspective of like we've had to work through like that's like a way for her to like get her her energy out. Yep. And so we really had to work with her on that. But like she like has to like hug and cuddle and be touching you at all times.
I wonder too, is she touch digestion? Maybe.
Ooh, I don't know.
Because I am.
That
Like,
yeah,
so
that's
she
true.
could like take in life through touch.
Okay.
Yeah. That'd be cool to look at.
Yeah, I'll pull it up and see.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Yes. Oh, and that's the other thing. All 3 of them are emotional, and I'm the only
right. Yes,
Ooh.
yes.
Even though Lena's generator, she has an emotional.
How is that experience? I'm like, I have one emotional in my household, and I feel like it's a roller coaster of like, what is this feeling and why am I feeling?
Yeah, it's a lot. And it's hard. I think earlier this year we had a lot personally going on in our life. And I was at that in like that victimhood of like, this always happened to me. Why do I feel like I'm the one who has to like deal with all of this crap? And like I have these emotional people around me, and oh my goodness, I'm like, why is this happening to me? I think we all go through that sometimes.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
But yeah, I really was feeling it. But it is good in the sense of sometimes I like want an answer on something, and now I know that that's probably not happening from anyone in my house right away.
Oh, that's tricky.
It's gonna change.
Do they seem on a consistent wave together? Like, I don't do emotional waves like sync up like women's like periods, menstrual cycles. Wouldn't that be great? Like if they just all like got in sync, and then that day you could just like take
I don't
your
think...
damn.
Right. Like they're all their own.
They're all on their own wave
pattern. Yeah.
Lena is like, if she doesn't, I love the fact that she's a generator. She does not want to do something, you will know about it. Like it is, you don't want to mess with that.
But how cool is that? Because like you even
Yep.
came from a place earlier in this conversation of saying like, I've been saying yes to too many things. And then you've worked on that. So a lot of that is too, like you giving her the space to say no. So I think that's beautiful because I feel like we all grew up just doing whatever we were told
100%.
to a fault.
And I would say 50 to 75% of this journey for me has been healing from a lot of those things so that I can be a better parent. And sometimes I still like feel like I'm failing at that. And then I just remember certain aspects of like my own childhood or certain things that we're doing with the girls and just like our conversations, just everything about our relationship. Like maybe it's not perfect. It's never going to be perfect. But it's just so different than the way that we were growing up. And not even to like fault our own parents. It's just like life, society, it has changed so much. But just keeping an open dialogue has been really important for me. But like also they just inspire me every single day to be better for myself, because it's so true. It's like, I'll be like, why don't you want to do that? Or, oh, your friend is going to be here. Like, don't you want to go? And it's like, what? That's just like my own issues.
Yeah,
I can imagine where everyone is.
I can imagine like the things I will one day say.
Yes,
if
me.
I have
That's
a
what I was
child. I'm like,
too.
what is it going to be like? Figure out your career, little one. I'm gonna be like, what? That'll be the shit I'll be spewing.
Yes.
Oh
my gosh, I was saying
self-awareness
the same
remember their
thing.
age.
Like, of course you're saying that. Like, who wouldn't say that? But
Yeah.
how amazing the reflection, though. Like,
Yeah,
you're able to
self-awareness.
separate. Yeah.
And just like sometimes I have to remember their age too, of like, like I can't explain all these things to them right now.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, they're figuring out life.
Yes.
Oh my gosh. That's so cool though. But it sounds like there's a lot more grace, maybe, kind of knowing these energetic beings in your household and just being like, okay, everyone's going to need a little time. I don't need time, but everyone else is going to need a little time. So figuring out how that's going to like work for you, right? It's not like you molding for their energy. It's just like respecting everyone's to say, okay, how can this dynamic work as a family? But I'm sure there's a lot of like,
we have a visitor.
Oh, hi. Welcome to the podcast.
Would you like to say hi on the podcast?
We would love for you to. Hello,
hello. Timing. Hello.
Say hi.
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 I love your rainbow shirt.
Thank you.
It's Taylor.
Oh, a little T-Swift. Love it.
I'm just finishing up, okay?
Alexa told me to like for the pathway of life.
Okay, thank you.
Like, what
She's
a
beautiful... mini me. I love that.
What'd you say?
She's a mini me. You guys you look so similar.
I know.
I'm like, what a beautiful moment when we were just talking about family dynamics and being a mom, and then she walks in.
She's spiritually attuned.
Nice.
It really is. It's like,
aren't we all until we're not, right? So like, I love that you're giving her that permission to be that and celebrating that.
Yes.
Yeah, keep on going with it, right? And I think it's really just, I don't know, it's informed my work too, because
I want to hear more about your work, and
I would love to as well.
And maybe the transition from, getting laid off from that full-time job and what you're doing now. Like, give me all the deets.
It is wild because it's just, I just have such a different perspective on it. Like I was always like hustle, go-getter. I can do all the things, and then once I had my first daughter, I knew that there was going to be like a shift, but I also was like, I am not going to be a stay-at-home mom. I don't know if I want to be like full-time, but like, I know that I'm like, I don't see that in me. And I had such a hard time that first 8 months. I was actually home with her for like 8 months because, we moved then too. Because that's what we like. We like to move.
So do I. I've moved 3 times since 2020. So I have you beat.
You definitely have me beat.
I don't know about moving though while like pregnant, newborn.
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
This is what Brian does to me. I'm 8 months pregnant. He's like, let's move from New York to
Come on,
Philadelphia.
Brian.
Okay. All right. So we moved then, and
Oh
it was
my gosh.
a lot. And so then I left my job, obviously, because I moved. And yeah, that was really hard because I literally felt unsuccessful because I was not doing what I was so used to doing, which is literally sitting in front of a computer and like pumping out emails. Instead, I'm like taking care of a child, which is obviously very valuable, but it did not feel valuable at the end of the day at all. That was really challenging. And then I think from that point forward, I was literally just figuring out, what does this look like? Being a mom and having a career, being a mom, having a career. And like, it just years and years and years of that. And when finally, things shifted, I was still doing it. Like I was still pushing and on to the next thing and not giving myself a second to figure it all out. And I think once I moved, that was the time of like, you have to just stop. And even then I was like launching businesses. I became a low tox coach, helping women detox their homes. And that kind of got off the ground, but then it didn't. And I quickly was upset about it, but also I think it was because it wasn't truly aligned. And I was just like trying to force. And then what I realized in the last 2 years is like, nope, universe is saying that you have to do all of this personal growth, all of this healing before you can take your next step. And it was literally just this spring that it's like, I think we're all in like a good place. Like my kids are in a good place. I'm like ready to like work again. Like I really work, and I'm really excited about what I'm doing personally as a coach, and mindfulness, but then also am thinking about like other things too, that might bring back in like my marketing background that I had for 15 years and things like that. And being okay with maybe doing both. So yeah, I'm just excited about like the possibilities. I think there's a part of me that's scared because I've created such a flexible lifestyle with my kids at the beach that's lovely. And especially in the summer, it's like, oh, I don't know if I want to leave this, but I know it's the right move, and they're only going to continue to get older and becoming their own people too. But yeah, so I got into mindfulness, meditation, a lot of like somatic tools, EFT tapping, things like that. When my daughter was like struggling with some health stuff, and it would help me. And then when I was helping other women, I felt like something was missing. And so that's when I decided to get certified in meditation. And ever since then, it's just been like following the breadcrumbs of adding more things in that realm. So now I do I call it mindfulness life coaching because it's coaching, but generally almost in every like session that I have with someone, I bring them into a meditative state so that we can connect back to their bodies and have like the true messages come out. And I have found that always something surprising comes up, where sometimes when you're talking with someone, there's not always that vulnerability, or there's that fear of even saying it out loud, where if we go into a meditative state, it feels like okay to say it, or it feels okay to let yourself feel it. And it helps the person who I'm speaking with get out of their head. So that's been my focus, and leaning into teaching intuition. So it's like fun, right? Like it's all just fun.
So I want to respond to that you just said it's fun, because I've been sitting on this. You said at the beginning of this little moment, this little story, that you felt unsuccessful when you had left, or when you were moving and pregnant, and you were feeling unsuccessful. And I'm like, that's interesting, because that's not even, you're not self-beam, like as a projector, we want to be successful. As a generator, you want to feel satisfaction. And so now you're saying like, oh, it's fun. And I'm guessing, I was going to ask, do you feel satisfied now, even maybe more so than successful? Like, are you fueling that feeling more?
Yes. I definitely, and I probably wasn't fueling the feeling of satisfaction always. There was definitely things that I
Yeah.
liked about my past career and things like that. But once I became a mom, it was like more just like pumping things out. And I guess also getting that acknowledgement in the workplace. That was something that I really thrived on. So at home, when you're at home alone with your baby,
Yeah.
there's no acknowledgement from anyone.
Why can't they say thank you? Why can't they just tell me I'm doing a good job?
Nobody's saying that. When they get a little older, there's
Yeah, but you probably learned how to tell yourself that. And too, when you were saying like you were kind of being invited or pushed or being given something to respond to just kind of like spend time on yourself before finding that clarity maybe in your career, your work. It like just, I felt too that you were just creating capacity. Like you were releasing so much conditioning, so many things that you thought you were supposed to be to create the capacity that like now you probably can work in your coaching and whatever marketing venture you take because you have so much more capacity.
Absolutely. So I felt like I always feel like I can take on a lot, but I was at the point of just like probably burnout almost. It was just too much. Too much.
It's beautiful.
It is beautiful. It
Mm.
is beautiful. And like both Kaitlyn and I, we were part of the Third Eye Library, which is a part of Mighty Networks. It's a community that is through that platform. And I feel like you've been doing all sorts of offerings and things there too around tapping and meditation. And it's really for people who like love the woo and all sorts of things woo. We have a lot of different
Contributors.
yes, contributors and with a wide range of topics. So that's also been something that's been really fun to see you provide and like serve in that group and that community as well. I feel like that's been you are definitely one that I feel like people are like very engaged with and like interested in tapping and meditation and like how to just like practically use that in their life.
Yeah, and I won't go too into it right now, but I think part of this whole journey too is like definitely a spiritual one as well, because that was not a part of my life at all, like whatsoever. Yeah, I would meditate, but it wasn't like a spiritual connection. I think it was like more of like mainstream today meditating, like you need to meditate because it's good for you kind of thing. I think that's how I got into it, but it wasn't from like a spiritual perspective. So that has been a cool journey to be a part of the Third Library now and being able to contribute to that, but also like learning so much as I go and I'm in that space too. And going to be like shifting my space in there a little bit more towards developing intuition and just using the tools like tapping and meditation to support you while you're on that journey. But yeah, definitely check it out for anyone who's kind of just at the beginning of that journey. I feel like it's a really good space for that.
And like such a powerhouse as a generator. Sorry, Jenna, I cut you off.
No, you're good.
To really like what a like lovely tool you have found to get you back into your body, right? Like there's no mind happening in those tools. So as a fellow generator, I'm like, oh, that's nice. That sounds really useful.
You can relate.
Yes.
I was just thinking the other day, like I always hear you in the back of my head, Jess, of like, just get into your body, move your body.
Yes.
I don't know. I mean, I've been friends with you for a while now, but we say it a lot on the podcast too. And with my defined root, I was reflecting on how much more I even moved my body and connected with my body years like before the pandemic.
Yeah.
And I need to as well. I'm thinking about it a lot lately of like, there's new ways that my body wants to move right now. So
I love that. Especially in the summer. I've been really craving that. I feel like the last couple of years, and I think knowing your chart too kind of pushes back a little bit more. Now I like know why I need to like move more physically and things like that. And now I can actually feel it in my body. Like, oh my gosh, I have to go out for a walk, or
it's like, you know, your reason why versus external world telling you to move your body.
Yes.
You know, like there's a big difference when you know your energy dynamics and your blueprint and why it's beneficial to move versus just like following, like you had said, mainstream instruction.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, I was going to ask two fun questions.
Sorry.
Yay.
Fun questions, which I don't know if this will dive us into more conversation, but I randomly asked these to our last guest, so I want to ask you as
Perfect.
well. So like, what is something, we'll start with not the low frequency, but maybe the more triggering question. What's something that you're like fearing right now in life?
Yeah, you did ask this.
Oh gosh.
I want to normalize that while we wait, we all have fears.
Probably so
Ooh.
many things.
That
So
is
I
true.
probably, as an entrepreneur, I'm always fearing that the next idea is the wrong one and I'm going to do it wrong, like fear of failing for
Yeah.
sure. Down to literally the nitty gritty of like, I have 2 Instagram accounts. Why do I have 2 Instagram accounts?
But that's so valid. I've had those thoughts too. How
Yeah.
funny is yeah.
Yep.
So that is definitely like a constant. And then I would say from like a personal perspective, and I think things are shifting now, but for a little while, probably in the last like year, it was like fear of like not getting everything that I've wanted out of my relationship
Okay.
with my partner.
Yeah.
Just like with everything of parenting and life changing. And I mean, I think, what is it? This year's 12 years married and like 18 years knowing each other.
Wow.
And just being able to, I don't know, I think I saw something and it like dawned on me that like, especially as you get older, you spend the most time with that person. And I said to him, I was like, once the kids are gone, you're stuck with me. So we better like each other and find something that we like to do together.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's like a valid thought too, though. Like, as kind of as I said earlier, like we as women, like going through these personal internal changes and spending so much time understanding ourselves. And then we look at everybody around us and we're like, oh my God, wait, do we still fit? Do we still like the same things? And I think that's just like a pivotal point that we all go through. Cause I felt that too, in the sense of like, I'm like, is he ever going to want to talk about human design? Because like, this is who I am. This is who I am in this season of life. But yeah, I love that you kind of brought that up because I think that's just being human and being human with other humans.
And like wanting to enjoy your life, right? Like you want to enjoy it. You want to have like a pleasurable time. Like, so you're auditing like, okay, what are my variables here? Like, what are the factors? Like, I love that. I feel like for more relationships, like how much value can come from that. If it's, we just get so stuck in like the day to day, the things going, and then it's right. Like, oh, kids are gone. Oh, hey, you like, what are we going to do now?
Yeah. Do we still click?
Yeah. Like, I just love that. I feel like that was like life pivot, like your guys' trajectory, just like went over a percentage and like, just for like the improvement of life to have that reflection now versus 15 years from now.
Yeah, absolutely. And I come from divorced parents. So I think in like a long time ago, probably in the beginning of my relationship, that was always in the back of my head. I don't really think about that too much anymore. Doesn't really define, my relationship now, but yeah, it's just, it's interesting. It's just a totally different, I don't think people then were really thinking about that.
Yeah,
totally. Absolutely. Okay.
Okay.
What's the other question? I remember the fear one, but I don't remember.
What do you absolutely love about your life right now?
Great.
What's the most magical thing?
Living in Cape May.
Oh, there you go.
Perfect. Oh my gosh. I feel like I need to book a trip there now. I'm like,
I need to book a trip there too. Let's just all go and hang out.
You know what I used to have? I used to have the CMBP little red shorts. I don't know if they like still have those, but I like have all these pictures as a kid with CMBP on my booty.
That is
and it was Cape May
funny.
Beach Patrol, but we would always say Cape May Butt Patrol.
Oh my gosh, I'm totally telling my kids that after this, they're gonna love it.
Yeah. Pass it on. Send me pics.
Oh my
Yeah, you're gonna
gosh.
absolutely love that.
It's too
Yeah, I
sweet.
would say, especially this time of year, like it's just one of those things where I step outside every morning and I'm like, oh my gosh, like I can't believe I live here. And there's so many times throughout the year that I'm like, did we do the right thing? Like, why are we here? Especially in the winter, we're like, why are we here? And also just like missing people. But I will say the one really cool thing about moving is, especially when you're on a personal growth journey, is you get a blank slate. And, I feel strongly about staying connected with a lot of like strong past relationships. And that can be challenging when you're not as close anymore. That's really hard for me. But at the same time, I don't feel the need as much anymore to form so many new relationships where I am. Like it's kind of nice to have this like peaceful space and just building like a smaller community here. And yeah, it's just, I mean, the amount of things to do in nature, like I think I've just probably missed that part of living for a while. Like I love the city, lived in cities for so long, but you do get disconnected from nature when you're living in a city. So
It's interesting that your favorite part was Cape May, and then your fear was making the wrong choices in your business. But like, this is evidence that you made a choice that you were like, had a bunch of question marks around, like, is this going to be right? And now it's your favorite thing about your life. So you could trust your decisions. You could trust your sacral. It's like a big, giant piece of evidence.
Oh, that's a good call out.
Yeah.
You're always looking at like past business things, but really if you look at like your whole life, like what are the decisions that you've made? Like you don't have to just look at one category.
Yeah, especially if that's the category where you're maybe like not trusting yourself the most or have the most wounds or fears around.
Good point.
Multi-dimensional, everything's connected.
So good.
Well, is there anything else we want to discuss today? Or I think the open invitation is always there to come back as life shifts and more is birthed in your world that we'll definitely want to know about. But Jess, anything else? Kaitlyn, anything else you want to share?
No, I think we've touched on so many different things, actually.
I know. It was so fun getting to know you.
Yeah, you too. I'm so happy to be on here. I can't wait to see the episode out in the world.
Oh, it's always, I still get excited when I get my notification it's downloading. I'm like, oh, yay, another episode.
I listen to it while I edit it. So I get like a preview.
That's awesome. That's awesome. You guys are doing an amazing job. I love it. I love how you just kind of go with the flow and talk about what's coming up. It just makes it easy to listen to. I love it.
Thank you. Thank you for that feedback. And thank you for joining that energy today.
Yes. And like, how can people follow you, get connected with you? Like what would be, as people are listening to this and want to know more of your offerings and your journey, where would you like us to send them?
Instagram, probably, Root and Flourish Collective as it stands today. Who knows? The name might change.
We'll put it in the show notes. And if it changes, we could always change it.
Yep. You just keep us posted.
Easy as that.
Yeah, but Root and Flourish and that's also my website too. So that's probably the best way to find me and DM me. I love having conversations and just engaging and finding out more about people.
Wonderful. Well, this was so fun. Such a pleasure. Thank you for taking the time.
Thank you.
And hopefully people I think we haven't really talked too much about like family dynamics. So I hope that was really interesting for a lot of people listening. Like, oh, okay, I can see like how this all fits together and all of that too. Because Jen and I both love talking about those relational family dynamics. So that was really fun.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
All right. Well, have a good day, everyone. And we'll catch you on the next episode.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.